Coast Guard. Two or three things have come to mind when thinking about the importance of the Coast Guard to all of us who live out here. One thing is your work to make sure that the Newport Air Station stayed open. Number two, huge. Number two, we went through a period of dark days, 34 days in fact, where our Coast Guard members were not receiving any pay. And I believe that they're the military branch, or the branch that was not receiving pay. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on the potential for that ever happening again. And I also understand that before you left DC recently, that there was a Coast Guard reauthorization bill. Could you talk a little bit about what's happening with the Coast Guard?
Sure, thanks, Caddy. Well, I'm a huge fan of the Coast Guard, and we have indefinitely preserved the Naval Air Station, the air station up in Newport. You know, in the dark days many years ago when I was first in Congress, one year the Coast Guard was short of money and they shut down one of our summer life-saving stations, and a few people died. And I had a very hard conversation with the commandant. You know, there's some people, particularly who haven't served in this region, don't understand that our waters aren't survivable for any length of time year-round because of how cold they are. I mean, people in the East Coast think, well, God, you ought to be able to tread water for a few hours. Well, someone comes from another port. Well, no, you can't. The Pacific is way different than the Atlantic, which these days gets well up into the 70s in the summertime. You know, I've been very protective of the fastest response possible. We passed a good Coast Guard bill out of my committee. It actually increases funding for the Coast Guard. They've been chronically underfunded. The Coast Guards have been just like, and I have helped change the attitude a little bit. They've been a little too good about saying yes or no, sir, when they get their budget allocations back from Office of Management and Budget. And one year I said to the Admiral, the Commandant in the hearing, I said, so you've only got your unmet needs? You've got like three things. I said, where are the icebreakers? Oh, the icebreakers. Well, that's a lot of money. I said, yeah, but it's a need, right? We're down to one, and it's 50 years old. Yeah, that's a need. And then I said, so couldn't we have real lists? I said, I know you're censored by the Office of Management and Budget of what your needs really are. So they're doing a much better job now, and this bill will address some of their needs for their shoreside facilities, and will assure that we're moving forward with icebreakers and with new offshore ships, the OPC. So that's good. I had a provision in the bill that would have said during a government shutdown the Coast Guard will be paid. They gave me a choice of, you know, that's the good part. The bad part is they gave me a choice: bring up your bill now, before Congress recesses, or you can continue to fight us into the fall, but you have to take that provision out of the bill. And it's because of the stupid way we do budgeting in DC. And they said, your bill costs $2 billion, a new deficit. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. I'm just going to pay the Coast Guard while the government shut down. They say, well, no. The assumption is if you don't pay them while the government shut down, that they'll never be paid, therefore you wouldn't have spent that money. And I said, that's stupid. You know, yeah, well, that's not the way the rules work. So I had to take it out of the bill. But the Senate isn't bound by the same stupid rules as the House, although sometimes I wish they had more rules over there, but not this one. So the Senate bill contains the provision that they will be paid as the 4th Uniformed Military Service in case of a future shutdown of the government, and I'm afraid I will have to give way to the Senate's wishes in that provision of the bill when we have a conference committee. And then when it comes back to the floor of the House, they can't raise a point of order against it on budgetary purposes. So I'm hopeful that we will get that provision in the bill. But it was ironic during the shutdown. I mean, I don't know how many of you saw, there was a great video about 3 or 4 weeks ago now of a coastie jumping onto a semi-submersible. I mean, pretty risky stuff, jumping and standing and pounding on the hatch, you know, to get them to open it and stop the submersible full of drugs. Truth be told, the Coast Guard intercepts more drugs than every other agency of the federal government and state and local government combined, because there's two preferred ways the cartels brings drugs into this country. They don't put them in backpacks and carry them over the border, so a stupid wall isn't going to work. What they do is they buy semis and they modify them, or pickup trucks or everything else, and they bring them right through our ports of entry, and we only inspect, with high technology, 6% of the vehicles. We have testimony to that in the conviction of Guzman from his lieutenants in New York. And so we need high technology at the border. But the other more stunning thing is the former Commandant of the Coast Guard, Admiral Z, when he was retiring, and they always get much more honest when they're retiring in terms of defying the chain of command, said, look, we have actionable intelligence on 80% of the major drug shipments coming to this country, and I can dispatch and intercept 20% of those because I don't have the helicopters, I don't have the ships, I don't have the personnel to do it. So if we're going to spend billions of dollars, instead of spending on a stupid static wall, let's spend it on technology at the border and more Coast Guard resources to actually stop the drug shipping.